Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. I'm Den Haring for Fish Den 365, and do you know what day it is today? That's right, it's Topwater Tuesday! Doing everything we can to make Tuesdays just a bit more tolerable. Today's bait is the Bagley Balsa Wake 1. So over the weekend, found my way to Ollie's, and I like to look through their fishing bins. Oftentimes they're having sales that you can get some good baits. I like to look for the Lucky Craft baits. Oftentimes you can find baits that are normally 15 bucks for about half price, 9 bucks. So I did. I found some Pointer 78s, but while I was there, I also found this Bagley lure here. It's called a Bagley Balsa Wake 1. And it was $8. Normally it said here it would be $11. And so it's a Bagley bait. Here's another look at the bait. Nice color on it, nice paint job. That olive green back, silverish white, silver sides, white belly, a little bit of red and yellow in there. I like the color of the bait quite a bit. Now this is a crankbait, but it's set up to be a wake bait. A crankbait that stays on or just below the surface and makes a wake. Probably the best known crankbait for that today is the Man's -1 crankbait. This baby -1 crank is a real well-known crankbait that just goes just barely below the surface. And I was curious to see how the Bagley lure would compare to it, because the Man's lure is plastic, but this Bagley lure is balsa. It's made of balsa wood, and you can see the difference in profiles of these lures. The Bagley's got that deeper belly to it. The length is the same, but a little bit of a different shape and different material. So I was curious to see how the Bagley would fish versus the Man's baby -1. So I'll have a little footage for you here in a couple seconds to show you a comparison of the two on the water and how they work. But knowing that the Bagley was balsa, I figured, it's likely to have a different action than the Man's bait, and it does. So we'll go into that in a little bit. The equipment I like to use for this is I like to use my Topwater rod. It's a light lure because it's balsa, but with a light to medium light bait caster, I can cast it fine. And so I'm using it's a Daiwa Light and Tough Topwater rod, Topwater twitching rod, and it does fine for this. I'm using 20-pound test braided line, and then I'm using a leader, about 2 rod lengths of monofilament line, 17-pound test mono. And all that does is help keep it up on the surface, so it makes it more of a topwater presentation. Well, let's take it to the water now so you can see how it works. Also give you a bit of a comparison with the Man's, and then we'll come back here and give you my thoughts on the bait. All right, let's see how this bait looks on the water. Kind of a short cast there. We'll let those ripples subside. It's balsa, so I expect it to be a high floater and to be a bit more buoyant because of that. Ooh, there was a fish under it. And because of that, perhaps have a little more action to it than the Man's. It's got a tight wiggle. I'm a little surprised. I thought it'd be wider than that. But it stays on top at a higher speed. So let's see how fast we can actually fish this thing. Again, we'll let those ripples subside. Bob it nice. See, it makes a nice V wake. You can get that back and just go under the water. Catch a leaf there if I'm not careful. And you can really kind of move this thing pretty fast. It's under the water, but it sure makes that nice wake. Now, looks like you can throw it out there. You can get it to go under the water too. Let's see. Yep. So it does go down under, not far. It's popping right back up in a hurry because of the balsa. This one's not quite tuned right. It's going off to the left just a little bit. Not too bad. It's only a few inches under the water when you are doing this. Hopefully you can see that going in there. Now for comparison's sake, let's take a look at the man's baby -1. Compare it to this one. I'm going to put the man's -1 on right now. And we'll have a nice little comparison. Alright, so careful not to hook myself in my hurry here. We'll remove the Bagley Balsa bait. They're similar in size. You can see the man's is a little bit smaller profile overall. The length is the same. So let's throw the man's on there. Now the man's is plastic, whereas that Bagley is balsa. So let's see how this man's looks in the water. It's a heavier bait, so it casts a lot farther, easier. And you can see it floats high, but it goes under the water much easier. You got to go much slower to keep this one on top. This one's really meant to go under a little bit. You can keep it on top, but you got to go slow and have that line out of the water. So there's a difference right there between the balsa bait and the man's. The Bagley, you can go much faster and keep it on the surface. The man's, if you go that fast, it's going to go under the water. Here's the man's again. You can see as soon as I start going, it's trying to dive down. I keep it on top, but I gotta go real slow. And if I do go fast, it goes down deeper. It still comes up slower than the Bagley, but it does go down a little bit deeper. So if you had submergent grass and you wanted to go further down, if that submergent grass was, a foot from the surface, this would be the better bait. But if that submergent grass was only a few inches from the surface, well, then that Balsa B would be the right bait, or that Bagley Balsa would be the right bait. Now that you've seen this, we'll go back to the Balsa bait, the Bagley bait, so you can see the difference again. Take this out here this time in a little bit of a different section. Got a little backlash there. So this one, it stays up on that surface better. Nice V wake. This is a true wake bait. That's a nice way to fish it right there. I'll show you in a different angle where it's a little easier to see. You can reel this guy steady, but then while you're reeling it, twitch it every now and then. See that? And it kind of like, it kicks out when you twitch it. It kicks out to one side. Makes it seem like something's wrong with it, like it's really struggling. I can see that getting bit. Neat little topwater here, different type of topwater, making that wake. I'm looking forward to playing with this one more in the future. So there you can see the man's bait tends to dive down a little bit deeper, comes up slower. This one dives down only a few inches and comes up right away when you stop the retrieve. So you might wonder, well, what bait is best? Maybe you think that I only really have room in my box or room in my budget for one. Which should I buy? And I can't answer that because they're baits, they're different enough to make me think that depending on the conditions that you're fishing, one could be better than the other and vice versa. And I'll give you an example. So with the man's baby -1, you retrieve this the right way, you can get it down a foot. And so if you have submergent vegetation that is, a foot away from the surface or 2 feet away from the surface, and this goes down a foot, well, this might be the better bait for that because it gets down closer to where the weed tops are. But if you have those weed tops just under the surface or closer, well, now you've got a better presentation perhaps with this because it won't go down into the weeds, but it'll get close enough to them where you can catch the fish. So it just depends. You have to kind of experiment with both lures, get to know what they both do, how they both act and react, and then determine which is best there. And ultimately, you want to let the fish let you know as well. And so for me, I think there's a place for both these baits. I think in the summertime when everything's growing and up and the fish are lively and there's a lot of little fry in the water, I think this Bagley balsa bait having a livelier action to it, a little bit of a livelier rise to the top, could be a good choice. Spring and fall, the water temperature's a little cooler, this bait might do a little better, the man. So it just depends what your situation is. I do like this bait. I like the man's bait as well, but I do see myself fishing this bait in the future. I think some of those shallow Pocono water lakes, you know, you can make this thing wake on the water, and it just gives that quick little tight wiggle with the V wake. Looks like it's hurt. And then I showed you on that video, if you do that to topwater retrieval, you keep it on top and every now and then twitch the rod, boy, it hunts. It goes off to the right and left a little bit. It looks like there's something wrong with it. That's going to garner strikes. So I really do like the Balsa Wake 1 bait by Bagley. I don't know. I suppose it's still available today. I'll check and take a look. But I do like the bait, and it's going to find a place in my tackle box for certain circumstances.
You can't go fishing this week. It's gonna rain.
Well, you know, Snark, the fish don't mind because they're already wet. Well, for Snark and myself, that's it for this Topwater Tuesday. The Bagley Balsa Wake 1. I like it. Looking forward to fishing with it more. Until next time, keep it tuned here. Don't forget, give the thumbs up. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. If you do, hit that bell. That'll give you a notification for when my next video is coming out. We'll be having something coming out soon. Always something interesting here on Fish Den 365, so keep it tuned. And as always, may God bless your fishing endeavors.